Across the way, Yoo-bin is also preparing. She gives Joon-woo a reassuring nod, signaling that they're almost ready. The plan will take place at dawn, when the streets are at their quietest. The early morning hours offer the best chance of slipping past the zombies undetected. The following morning, just as the sun begins to rise, Joon-woo and Yoo-bin make their final preparations. They signal to each other, confirming the plan. The streets below are still, but the tension in the air is palpable. The zombies are unpredictable, and every movement feels like it could trigger disaster. Yoo-bin goes first, quietly making her way down to the lower levels of her apartment building. She uses a series of hand signals to communicate with Joon-woo, showing him when the coast is clear. Joon-woo watches intently, his heart pounding in his chest. He grips his makeshift knife tightly, trying to calm his racing thoughts. As Yoo-bin reaches the ground floor, she pauses at the entrance to her building. There are a few zombies nearby, but they haven't noticed her yet. She takes a deep breath and readies one of her noise-making devices. With a flick of her wrist, she throws it down an alleyway, far from where she plans to exit. The device clatters loudly, echoing through the streets. The effect is immediate. The zombies, drawn by the noise, begin to shuffle toward the alley, their heads twitching and jerking in response to the sound. Yoo-bin watches carefully, waiting until enough of them have moved away from her exit before slipping out into the street. Joon-woo's turn comes next. He's more hesitant, his fear nearly paralyzing him as he descends the stairs of his apartment building. His legs feel heavy, and each step seems to echo louder than the last. When he finally reaches the lobby, he peeks out of a crack in the door. Yoo-bin signals from her position, urging him to move quickly but quietly. He swallows hard and steps out into the street, his heart pounding so loudly that he's certain the zombies can hear it. He follows Yoo-bin's lead, moving stealthily along the walls of the buildings, staying in the shadows as much as possible. Every noise makes him flinch, but he forces himself to keep going. The streets are eerily quiet, save for the occasional moan or shuffle of the infected. Yoo-bin leads the way, keeping her eyes trained on the zombies' movements. Joon-woo follows closely behind, struggling to keep his fear in check. They move from cover to cover, using parked cars, dumpsters, and doorways to stay out of sight. At one point, they come across a group of zombies clustered near a car that has been overturned in the middle of the road. There's no way around them without being seen. Yoo-bin signals for Joon-woo to stay put while she sets up another distraction. She pulls out a small glass bottle and throws it toward an abandoned shop window down the street. The glass shatters with a sharp crack, and the zombies immediately turn in that direction, shambling toward the noise. It works. The path is clear for now, and they continue their journey, inching closer to the building they've identified as their destination. As they move deeper into the city, the danger intensifies. The streets become narrower, and the zombies more densely packed. Joon-woo's anxiety spikes, and at one point, he stumbles over a piece of debris, nearly falling. The sound draws the attention of a nearby zombie, who lets out a guttural growl and begins to stagger toward him. Panic surges through Joon-woo, but before the zombie can get any closer, Yoo-bin acts quickly. She throws another noise-making device, this time directly at the zombie's feet. The sudden noise startles the creature, causing it to veer off course, distracted by the sound. Joon-woo breathes a shaky sigh of relief and gives Yoo-bin a grateful nod. After what feels like hours of tense, nerve-wracking movement, they finally reach the building they've been aiming for. It's an older apartment complex, much like their own, but the entrance appears relatively clear of zombies. They sneak inside and quietly make their way up the stairs, searching for a safe place to rest. They find an empty apartment on the 3rd floor. It's small and cramped, but it's secure, and for the first time in days, they feel a brief sense of safety. Joon-woo collapses onto the floor, exhausted from the physical and emotional strain of the escape. Yoo-bin sits across from him, her face pale but composed. For a few moments, they sit in silence, catching their breath. The reality of what they've just done begins to sink in. They've made it out of their apartments, but they're still not safe. The city is still overrun with the infected, and they're no closer to finding a long-term solution. But for now, they're alive. They've survived another day. As the adrenaline of the escape begins to wear off, the enormity of the situation weighs heavily on Joon-woo and Yoo-bin. They've made it to a new location, but they're still trapped in a city filled with the undead. Their supplies are limited, and there's no guarantee that this new building will remain safe for long. Despite the uncertainty, there's a sense of accomplishment. They've proven that they can work together, that they can survive even in the face of overwhelming odds. The bond between them has grown stronger, and they now rely on each other not just for survival, but for emotional support as well. Joon-woo and Yoo-bin have survived the harrowing escape from their apartments. Exhausted but alive, they've taken refuge in an abandoned building, temporarily safe from the relentless hordes of zombies outside. The city is still a graveyard of collapsed buildings and roaming infected, but for the moment, they can catch their breath and reassess their situation. Joon-woo leans against the wall of the small apartment they've barricaded themselves into, his mind still racing from the events of their escape. His body aches, and every nerve is frayed from the constant tension of survival. Across from him, Yoo-bin sits quietly, her sharp eyes scanning the room for any sign of danger. Her calm composure gives Joon-woo some comfort, but even she can't hide the fatigue settling into her bones. They both know they can't stay here for long. They have barely any food, their water is running low, and they don't know what dangers may lurk in the building. Yet they're too drained to think clearly. The brief moment of relief after the escape is interrupted by a knock on the door. Both of them freeze. They haven't seen another survivor in weeks. Slowly, Yoo-bin motions for Joon-woo to take cover while she cautiously approaches the door. She grips her makeshift spear, a sharp piece of metal duct taped to a broomstick, and peers through the peephole. Outside stands an older man, possibly in his late 50s, with graying hair and a haggard look on his face. His clothes are torn and dirty, but he doesn't appear to be infected. His eyes are wide, full of desperation, but also a strange calm. He waves his hands in a show of peace. "Please," he whispers through the door, "I'm not infected. I have food. I can help." Joon-woo and Yoo-bin exchange uncertain glances. It's rare to encounter another survivor, let alone one offering help. In this world, where trust has become a scarce commodity, every instinct tells them to be wary. Yet the promise of food and aid is tempting. Their rations are running out, and they don't know when they'll find more. After a tense moment of hesitation, Yoo-bin decides to open the door, keeping her weapon raised just in case. The man steps inside, his posture hunched and submissive. He immediately raises his hands higher to show he means no harm. "I saw you both from across the street," he says, his voice rough but soft. "I've been hiding out in a nearby apartment, but it's no longer safe." Zombies are starting to get in. I have food, water, supplies, I just can't stay there anymore. I thought maybe we could help each other. The man introduces himself as Mr. Lee, an older resident of the city who had been surviving alone since the outbreak. He offers them a deal. If they come with him to his apartment, he'll share his food and supplies. He assures them his place is well stocked and secure. His demeanor is friendly, even paternal, and for a moment, both Joon-woo and Yoo-bin feel a flicker of hope. Could this be the break they need? Joon-woo feels a surge of optimism, but Yoo-bin remains guarded. She asks questions about the man's apartment, trying to gauge if his story holds up. He answers calmly, mentioning how he's been fortifying his place for weeks and has enough food to last a few more. His story sounds plausible, and although Yoo-bin remains suspicious, their dire circumstances force them to take a chance.